So my lovely wishes, welcome back to the Globku channel, and after many requests, I've finally taken the time to properly check every single character in the Jump Force roster and rank them on a tier list. This took a very long time, but I've finally arrived at a place that I feel comfortable placing all the characters. This tier list is gonna have 6 categories, with E-ranked characters being the worst, all the way up to S-ranked characters, which are the top tier. And we're not gonna have time to talk about each individual character, so on each category we're just gonna mention a few of them, and hopefully you get an idea as to why everyone else is on that same category. First up, the E-ranked characters, the lowest tiers. This is the why would you ever pick these characters tier? Well, the answer is because you like those characters and you don't care about tier lists. But every single character is here for a different reason, so let's get down to it. Blackbeard hurts my soul. His moveset is actually good, but the character and the special effects just cover too much of the screen that half the time you're playing him, you just don't know what's happening. Without this big disadvantage, I think he could easily be a B-rank character, but with this, he's just like one of the worst. Kurapika has no way to counter zoning, which is one of the most effective playstyles in the current meta, and even if he does cover that distance, his damage output is really nothing special. And for the record, combos in this game have to be super short. When I talk about damage through this entire video, it's always for very short combos. Any combo that is above 5 seconds is super easy to escape, so it might as well not exist. His healing ability is neglectable, and I guess Kurapika can suck meter off the opponent, but with the amount of damage that he deals, Frieza and Yugi are both here for similar reasons. They're both billed as zoner characters, but they are bad zoners. It's easy to sidestep or dodge most of their abilities, and at close range, their damage output is super low. Yugi got his damage nerfed recently. It was a lot higher on my tier list, but now he's just bad. Finally, Kaguya just spends too much meter to deal no damage at all. Her zoning sucks, everything about her sucks, except for maybe her ultimate. She might be the worst character in the game. D ranks, still pretty bad. I'd personally never pick any of these characters if I'm trying to win, and it all starts with Cell, who looked like he had a pretty complete moveset, but turns out that complete moveset doesn't give him enough damage or utility. Boruto and Shiryu are here for the exact same reason. They look like complete characters, but turns out they don't deal damage, and the utility is also pretty low. Renji cannot call assists during his special attacks, which severely nerfs his damage output, and Deku is a bit situational. You need to put in a lot of work to make him reliable, but even then, even if he had the ideal situation, he just raised to maybe a C rank. In most situations, he's right where he belongs. C ranks. A lot of characters are here. These are what I'd call just the standard characters. They have their tools, but they lack the gimmick to take them even further beyond. They all got good damage, or average damage at least, and all of them have some way to respond to zoners. Vegeta, Trunks, Dai, Bo Hancock, Gaara, Naruto, Goku, Rukia, and Piccolo all have projectiles, so they can even do some zoning themselves. But at the same time, there are just better zoners in this game, which knocks all these characters down a tier. Then we have Sanji and Togoro, who can counter zoners with some other tools. Togoro being a character with a lot of armored moves and solid damage output, and Sanji has some good combo potential and incredible speed on a lot of his specials. A lot of these characters are also one-trick ponies, where their one trick doesn't really work all the time. For instance, Vegeta's zoning. You see it a lot. But you get a good character that counters zoning, and Vegeta is completely disarmed. He's got nothing else. If he goes into melee range, his damage is just average, but every other character we'll talk about that is a higher tier is just better than Vegeta. Boa Hancock seems to have some great combos, and they're pretty fun, but they're also super expensive, and the damage they deal is only average. And those are just a couple of examples of why these characters are C tier, which is not bad. This is the mid tier. They are fine. They're just not excellent because there are characters that are way better. B ranks. I consider all of these characters to be good. With the right team, I think all of these characters could be viable and ranked, but they have a glaring weakness that will just completely counter them. For instance, Kenshin, Shishio, and Asta. They all have good damage. Asta may be less than the others, but he does drain meter to make up for that. But they have no way to deal with zoning. So if they find a zoner, they are completely countered. They have no way to respond. The rest of the characters may not have such a high damage output as these three, but they have other gimmicks that push them to this tier. Luffy, Seiya, Yusuke, and Dio, for instance, all have unblockable attacks, unblockable special moves, which if you don't use all the time, but use them unpredictably, as you should, becomes a very scary tool. Sasuke is one of the best zoners in the game, though he's a bit of a one-trick pony. That said, his zoning is good, and zoning just works great in this game, so Sasuke definitely deserves the B tier. Kakashi also has some great damage output, and he also has a counter. So even if his ranged attack isn't the best, I put him as high as B tier. Sabo just has a lot of safe options on block, so he can play in a very risky way that is actually rewarding once you open up your opponent, because his damage output is also solid. So yeah, all in all, these are good characters, but they have that one glaring weakness that knocks them down to B tier. A ranks. These are just overall solid, and they would be top tier if Jump Force was a normal game, but the top tier characters in this game are just completely ridiculous. Hisoka first. He has a counter, he has a projectile that granted is a bit slow, it has some startup time, but it tracks extremely well, so you can play some zoning with Hisoka, and then he's also got great damage. The bubble gum is one of the fastest and easiest abilities to combo into, and it's plus on block, so you can keep your opponent blocking forever, even if he has no assists. Gon, well, 50% damage solo. This is true damage. The opponent cannot escape from this. And with a good assist, you can go even further. He's also got an unblockable, he's got a projectile, and it didn't look like it at first, but he's actually a very complete character. Gon is also super technical though. He's not your typical brainless spam character. So if you're trying to pick up Gon, make sure to go into practice. I got mad respect for good Gon players. Jotaro, once again, great damage, easy to synergize with pretty much any character. His star finger is plus on block. It does cost 2 bars, so he's not as good as an option as Hisoka's bubblegum on block, but still a pretty solid option to keep block strings going. He's got great normals. It's hard to punish Jotaro after using an escape because of his stand, and he's got one of the fastest and hardest to read grabs that actually work in a block string. Kenshiro has also got mad solo damage, and his special locks the stamina bar, so Kenshiro is the exception to the rule. He is the only character that can actually unleash long combos on anyone if he hits them with this ability, which by the way, he can combo into this ability himself with no help. Because of this specific property, he's gonna raise up to A rank, and if he can hit them with another debuff, which is lowering physical resistance, then his damage just skyrockets. He's probably the most slept on character in this entire game. Finally, Real Saiba is probably the best zoner in the game, and once again, in Jump Force, zoning is just a very effective strategy. He's just not top tier because actually that's all he has. So against a character that's good against zoning, Ryo is kind of screwed. But again, against most of this roster, he is a severe threat. S ranks, the top tier characters. And I feel like from S ranks to the rest of this roster, there's just this huge gap that separates them, way bigger than most games I play. But these are the characters that will just give you easy wins because their tools are crazy good. Ichigo is a very complete character. He's got a counter, he's got great damage, and he has a projectile. This projectile becomes the best projectile in the game after he goes into Awakening. It's super fast, deals crazy damage, and with a little bit of lag just playing online, it's impossible to block this thing on reaction. The projectile's tracking did just get nerfed, but everything else remains the same. He just kind of has no flaws. Zoro has even crazier damage output with a projectile and an unblockable attack. His projectile isn't as good as Ichigo's, but his damage is even better. So once again, a very complete character with crazy damage numbers. Then we have Killua, who also has great damage. His Thunderbolt counters most approaches, and the damage conversion from that is crazy high. His first special is also one of the easiest things to extend combos with, so he works with most assists, and that's before he even powers up with Godspeed, because if you let him power up, then he becomes truly insane. And finally, Aizen, which people really value his airtight Black Coffin combo, but let me tell you, that just doesn't work in higher ranks. Airtight is a solid tool for countering projectile spammers, but the chances of you actually pulling off a Black Coffin on high rank are just extremely low. Aizen makes it to the top tier based on his rush and strong attacks alone. Dude has crazy tracking, he can keep you blocking for ages, and on top of that, his lightning ability is just very hard to dodge. So he's gonna keep you blocking, and if you just keep blocking, eventually you're gonna get opened up, be it with a grab or because, you know, Aizen just vanishes when he charges his strong attack in the air. So yeah, broken character, top tier for sure. And that's the tier list, but we're actually not done. You might have noticed that the characters are displayed in sort of a weird position, and that's because this is not only a tier list for how good these characters are, it's also a tier list for how good their assists are. On the left, we have the worst assists in the game, and on the right, you have the best assists in the game. So if you're trying to pick a good team, you shouldn't just look at the characters at the top, you should also be looking for good supports on the right of this list. Ryo Saiba's assist, even if it didn't have the guard break cheese that it currently does, which by the way, the second patch just hit and it's still in there. It's an assist that allows you to be completely reckless once the missiles are out. Because even if the opponent punishes you for being reckless, chances are he'll get hit with the missiles for trying to punish. Rukia and Piccolo, I think, speak for themselves. They keep the opponent stuck for a long time. Very easy to extend combos or make your block strings safe. Then on the second tier of assists, all of these are still extremely viable. Kakashi is like a less good version of Ryo Saiba's assist, but still very solid. Naruto and Sasuke make the opponent block for a very long time. Goku, Gaara, and Yugi, although their assists look different, I actually think they're pretty similar because they are all projectiles that linger for a very long time. Kaguya and Aizen, while their assists are not necessarily projectiles, they have some very good mid-range and also last for a very long time, very easy to extend, very easy to put in block strings. Jotaro makes it super easy by pulling the opponent back to you, so kind of no matter what you do, you can just pull them back in and keep doing what you're doing. Renji is similar that way since he also lingers on stage for a bit, and we've already talked about Killwa's Thunderbolt ability. Now imagine just having that available as an assist. And finally, Dragon Shiryu was the surprise for me here. I didn't expect his assist to be so good, but actually it has very good range, and if it hits, it sets up the opponent perfectly for an easy follow-up. The third tier of assists is pretty much just projectiles. They're all very solid and they all kind of behave the same way with some minor differences. You call the assist, they throw the projectile. It's not always the best assist to extend combos, they're kind of situational, but they're reliable on block strings and can help you zone your opponents. Then tier 4 is probably going to be the most controversial, and it's most likely because of Vegeta and Boruto here. The reason why they're so low is because their assists are unreliable. Vegeta misses most of his ki blasts, so you never really know if you can count on it at the right time. It usually lands 1 or 2 blasts at the very least, but there are gaps that are way too big between those blasts. And with most special attacks being armored, with your assists being unable to take damage, it actually ends up being pretty dangerous calling Vegeta in most situations. The same mindset applies to Boruto. His slow Rasengan is interesting, but again, too unreliable. It's easy to dodge it, the tracking seems great sometimes, and others, you just don't know what it's looking for. So half the time, it just doesn't do what you want it to do. And then all those B tier characters have some form of a melee assist that once it connects, it just blows the opponent incredibly far. And that makes it very hard to extend combos, but they can still be useful to make block strings safe. Same goes for Blackbeard at the bottom there. Then Kurapika is a bit specific. His healing is very low, so he only really works if you have a good zoner, a character that can keep their distance on their own, without needing the help of assists, because your assist is going to be Kurapika. He's not going to help you zone anyone. That way you can keep calling Kurapika, who can just keep on healing you while you hit your opponent with projectiles, but that's it. That's the only viable way for using Kurapika. He's not going to help you with combos, not going to help you with block strings, so overall he's a pretty bad assist. And then we have the worst assists in the game. Togoro is even more unreliable. He can just completely miss his target depending on your distance. His effective range is very limited. You gotta be within a specific distance of the enemy character. And Sanji is kind of the same. He only works at a very specific range, but even when he lands his assist, the effect just isn't that great. And then Cell is just bad. He's got a projectile that travels horizontally. When you hit your opponents, they are knocked back vertically, which means most of the time the assist is just gonna fail because it doesn't track the enemies properly. And that, my friends, is my Jump Force tier list of characters and their assists. Obviously, some of you will disagree, and I encourage you to let me know what you would change. But you asked for my personal tier list, and I feel very comfortable with this. I put a lot of thought into it. I questioned the placement of every single character multiple times, and this is what I think of the roster as the game currently is. But as always, folks, thank you very much for watching. My name is Globku, and I'll see you guys next time. Bye.